Take my tips and pay me below minimum wage. See what happens. Apologize in advance for the walls of text. But this has layers. So this all happened years ago when I was still in college. I worked for a delivery joint. The company seemed super cool. Because they provided vehicles instead of forcing you to beat down your own car. Huge perk, right? Well, in this case, no. The owner of the company used this as justification to take a percentage of the driver's tips. Often this would result in an employee making below minimum wage. If you made below minimum wage, you would have to come and pick up your check in person and sign a document attesting that you did make minimum wage due to undocumented cash tips or some such nonsense. Now this was a problem for two reasons. Number one, in the state I was in, employee tips belonged to the employee unless part of an employee tip pooling agreement. This was plain as day on the Department of Labor website. So that 20% gouge was already crossing a line. Number two, you cannot just hand wave and or force employees to say they made above minimum wage. So pretty shady shit, right? Now most people would see this situation and run for the hills. Which probably explained the delivery driver turnover being so high. I on the other hand saw the potential. See, I am pretty well versed in labor law. And decided that I was gonna ride it out. I wanted to see how long they would keep this shit up. Here and there I would make comments to the managers about the legality of their practices. And was often told, our lawyers said it's okay. So it's okay. Would love to meet these lawyers one day. So I patiently waited for a year, documenting every red cent they took from me and encouraging the other drivers to do so. Every new driver that came through that door got a little powwow with me. And I would give them the skinny. Unfortunately, my plan must have leaked because sooner than later the joint decided to fire me after making up 3 bogus infractions. If you're interested in those, ask and I'll explain in an edit. This wasn't a problem though, as my plan was already in action. See, in this state, unpaid wages collect interest, so what was $20 to $40 a night? 5 nights a week, over 1 year, quickly became a decent sum. So I began collecting the names of current and previous employees whom had been screwed over by the company and collected their documented data, then sent it off to the Department of Labor. At the end of the day it took a couple months. But the company was eventually required to pay a decent chunk of change to all parties and a pretty hefty fine on top. Overall I believe it came out to a little under $100K. I wasn't done though. See, those shady little documents they had us sign claiming we made over minimum wage affected how the company was reporting its payroll tax. The IRS eventually came in and hit them for a ton of back taxes. And I received a small portion of the settlement. The IRS used to pay people who tipped them off. Don't know if they still do. Finally, I was increasingly aware of the company's under-the-table agreement with their health inspector, which I decided to go ahead and tip off to the health department. This resulted in even more fines and a temporary closure for the joint. Altogether it ended up costing this dumb little delivery joint a ton of money just to stay open. All cause they wanted 20% of their drivers' tips. The moral here is this: know your labor laws. It's degenerates like these whom profit off the ignorance or fear of a workforce. The more you know about your rights, the less idiots like these will be able to survive in the wild. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Edit 1. Holy shit. I did not expect this to blow up. To address a few things. The infractions that led to my termination and their bullshit nature are down in the comments. Hopefully they are not buried. I also wanted to address something I saw in the comments quite a bit. If you are in a situation that does not seem right, document everything. Keep a little black notebook and write down everything. The most important thing you can do to protect yourself from nonsense in the workplace is document. 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 If you are ever in question of something, be it disability rights at work or earnings, you can always contact your state EEOC branch or DOL branch. They will gladly help you figure out what is and isn't proper. Don't be a person who gets taken advantage of by bad employers. Only by fighting back will they ever learn their lesson. Thanks again for all the questions, and thanks to you fine folk who found this worthy of an award. I probably won't edit again cause the rules of the subreddit say to not make a lot of edits. If there is reason for a big one though, I will go ahead and make one. Here for the bogus infractions. That's some pretty impressive revenge. It amazes me what greedy people will do. Probably because I'm not a greedy, screw others over kind of person. I just can't imagine doing that to someone. It was probably a really fucking stupid idea on the owner's part to screw over and fire an employee that knows you're breaking labor laws and health codes. Hopefully that idiot learned a very expensive lesson here and stopped robbing people that aren't paid enough to put up with their shit. I'd prefer that he lost his business, but we can't always get what we want. Man, I've always wanted politics and laws mandated to be taught on schools. Imagine what a whole army of well-informed people like this would do to the scammers of the system. Finally, a good story, where OP actually wasn't naive and knew what they were doing. This is absolutely glorious to hear. Also, I read about the infractions in your comment. Was it also possible to get them for wrongful termination, or was that not an option? Jesus mate, you went for their throats. Awesome. Similar story but with a health and safety infraction. At my previous job, customer service, for a small company, we would often help other departments such as warehouse, web development, etc. On one particular day a light went out. I had electrical knowledge and was offered to be paid to fix it, but the contingency was to be lifted up to the light in the warehouse by using a pallet on the forklift and for me to be standing on it. No harness. I refused. I was then written up. Weird. OSHA didn't find it all that weird though when they showed up after me reporting it to come in to find the CEO standing up there with the warehouse manager driving the lift. Fair to say, a nice hefty fine ensued along with my resignation because I was destined for departure at that point. I just chose to go on my own accord. What happens in Australia is that it takes 4 to 6 years to get to court, by which time the company has made itself go into bankruptcy to avoid paying. Then they reopen under a different name. Happens all the time. Be wary if you are a backpacker doing farm work in Australia. Oh phewick, yes. Where could I learn information about labor laws? From primary sources and stuff. IRS still pays reporters of shady tax shit. Please tell me they knew this all happened because you got the ball rolling. It makes it so much sweeter. A bit of wisdom from another thread I read on here a while back. Only break one law at a time. Capitalism really just allows unrepentant greed until someone comes along. Every U.S. state prohibits employers from taking employee tips for any business use. A valid tip-sharing pool is legal, but the requirements are pretty strict. Only people who customarily and regularly receive tips can participate. Everyone makes at least minimum wage, and no management can get any part of a tip. If the tips stolen brought you down below minimum wage, that's a different violation. if they threatened to not give you your paycheck unless you falsified documents. That's another violation each time it happened. Would like to know the reasons PLS. You my good fellow are a evil genius of justice and I'm here for and loving it. This reminds me of something that happened to me, although not this badly. I worked as a busser and wasn't making that much on wages. One nice thing was that I got tips which were supposed to be recorded on a tip sheet that the servers were supposed to fill out and turn in to finance for taxes. Well, one paycheck I saw that they were claiming I was getting $200 in tips for 2 weeks. I was like, that's not possible, so I went to the office about it and they explained that they never got the sheets and they were doing a certain percentage based. I was like, nope, you know that's not right, so I no longer want tips if it's going to come back and bite me in the rear. Not too long after that, the department's heads had a meeting and they decided to put all of that into writing and I got a retro pay for the stuff that they claimed that I earned, which I think was around $600. Did you or your coworkers get in any trouble for the fraud you committed? Our lawyers said it's okay, so it's okay, hee hee. That's a classic and often famous last words. Would have been a good one with some more specific details.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.